All right, so I've got an exciting event coming up with some buddies of mine. We're doing an event we're calling Periphery Pandemonium. And what is Periphery Pandemonium? Well, it's basically a team tournament or a team event. There's going to be 3 rounds in this event. There's going to be 4 teams. The teams represent different periphery nations during the clan invasion. Essentially, the narrative hook behind this is that Comstar's gone off to fight Tukied. They've pulled out of a lot of their installations. A lot of the other inner spheres factions have left their borders wide open, and the periphery nations are taking full advantage of this lack of border security, and they've gone a raided and are trying to steal different Comstar tech, Intersphere tech, whatever they can loot. But when they show up, there's other periphery nations there. So the 4 nations for this event are Canopus, the Magistracy of Canopus. There's also the Marian Hegemony. There's the Taurian Concordat, and then also pirates, because why not? Pirates got to be there, right? And in fact, I'm playing pirates. So the overview of this event is that it's a casual team tournament. Everyone's encouraged to paint up their units to look and be in the theme of their faction. This is going to kind of be what's expected of at least 3 of the factions. The pirates basically have like free reign to paint how they want. In fact, you see my pirates on the screen. They're very like mishmash, rusted up, beat up. I like my pirates to look like they haven't been doing maintenance in a while, as it were. There's no expectation that this event's going to be competitively balanced in any sort of way. There's a lot of fun little twists and extra things in there. Each team is consisted of 4 players with 1 commander and 3 players. It's my understanding that the commanders will help kind of determine where players are going to play each round from their team. And then scoring is based off of total team objective points, and then ties going to MOV. And so you may score 4, but if the rest of your compadres or the rest of your teammates only score 3, that's 7 points. Whereas if everyone on the opposing team was to score 2, they'd get 8. They'd actually win the round against you, even though you personally scored 4, if that makes sense. And so it's really key for like players to do well to help support their team. And as you're relying on other people in their games to for your overall team success. And this is not like a doubles tournament where you have 2 players on a side playing against 2 players on another side on the same board. This is 4 individual games where the scoring is added up each round to determine which faction won that round, if that makes sense. So we're using standard army construction from Wolfnet 350. There's a couple of kind of twists on this, though. We're using 300-point armies instead of 350-point armies. You're limited to a maximum of 12 units. And then in addition to that, everyone gets 3 free foot platoons that don't count towards your 12-man unit limit. Now it's clarified that this is not units that have foot movement, but that actually have foot in the name. So if you look on screen, you see my picture. I have what are they called here? I want to make sure I get the name right. It's just Foot Platoon Flamers, right? So I couldn't run, and I tried to get away with this because I was playing pirates, was the beast mounted infantry, because that would have been sweet. I've got some cool dino riders in 6mm, but they're not foot platoons, even though they have foot movement, if that makes sense. So all the foot platoons are also skill 4. And then also you're limited to only having a max of 2 units with TMM 4 or greater. And then we also, for non-infantry units, they couldn't have a base cost of less than 7. So you couldn't run something like a flatbed truck, is the way I understand it. I didn't run one anyways. Also, everyone's encouraged to do a paint color or paint scheme that was canon from their faction. Pirates, of course, being the exception to this. So let's see. So in addition to that, all the factions had to take clan invasion, and then they needed to take at least 2 units from a pre-populated list that the tournament organizer had that were iconic units for that faction. So Magistracy of Canopus, they had to take 2 units from the following list. They had to take either a Locust, a Wasp, a Stinger, a Koshi, a Shadowhawk, a Phoenix Hawk, a Marauder, an LRM, heavy LRM carrier, a heavy tracked APC, a Pike, a wheeled APC, a Manticore, or a Poe. The Marians had to take J. Edgar, Falcon, Goblin, medium tank, a Shrek PPC carrier, an AC2 carrier, a laser carrier, a tracked APC, a harasser, an SRM carrier, a Gladius hover tank, or a Maltier. And the Taurians had to take either two of any of the following units. That was a Locust, a Stinger, a Wasp, a Commando, a Hatchetman, a Phoenix Hawk, a Marshal, a Shadowhawk, a Griffin, a Marauder, a Thunderbolt, a Warhammer, Ostrock, Archer, Plainsman, Bulldog, Vedette, Light SRM carrier, J. Edgar, Fulcrum, Prowler, Moltier, heavy wheeled APC, Hunter, a tracked APC, or a heavy hover APC. Ugh, that's a long list. Now, Pirates were the exception. Pirates actually had to take their list out of the, what's it called? The Lost Tech era. And then we're allowed to take 2 units from Clan Tech era. So we pirate players were kind of like bumped back in our tech, but then we were able to take anything from Clan Invasion, if that makes sense. So I ended up, if you see in my list, the 2 units that I took that were from Clan Invasion were light SRM carriers, and then everything else is from Lost Tech. So during the game, there's going to be terrain boards provided by myself. There are 8 of them. There are 2 desert boards. My desert boards are really themed around my pirates. They kind of have a what happens if Waterworld, the movie, went dry and was in a desert. And so I have like old drilling rigs and oil tankers and things like that. And in my mind, I have a little lore built up in my pirate faction. They don't have the ability to work on fusion engines. And so when they break down, they just replace them with internal combustion engines that includes on their mechs. And so they have to raid a lot of planets for petroleum for their mechs that break down and need, and their vehicles that now need fossil fuels. And so there's a lot of that kind of terrain in there. There's a lunar board. I have like a little lunar base with a drop ship on that. There's an agricultural board, so it's like farms and a co-op where you deliver grain, etc. There's a spaceport, which has got lots of drop ships and facilities and cargo and things like that. I have a lava board, which is very like Mustafa feeling, an industrial board that's very urban with a lot of very tall terrain and line of sight blocking terrain, and then a cavern board, which is also has some pretty tall terrain and line of sight blocking terrain and limits your ability to jump and or fly over things because there's a ceiling in the cavern. There's also what the tournament organizer, my buddy Jairus, is calling a twist. So each turn, at the beginning of the turn, he's going to roll a dice to determine a random effect that will impact all the games for the round. And then in addition to this, each table will have a special rule or 2 to keep things kind of interesting. So I think these are going to be terrain rules. He hasn't really told me or anyone else, but he's going to do that. And then last, there are rumors that an elite force of mech warriors are seemingly raiding everyone indiscriminately. And so we don't really know what that is. We don't know if that means there's going to be an op force on each board, or if it's going to be on select boards, or if there's just going to be like turret defenses or things like that. We'll have to find out when we get there. And then there's going to be faction decks that contain, it looks like it's going to contain 9 cards, and these cards can be played whenever indicated on the card. At the beginning of the game, each player then shuffles the cards and draws 3 cards. At the start of the turn, they can draw another one. These are just like fun little things that give you little boosts and little cheats and little ways to manipulate the game. And from what I've been told by Jairus is that they're themed off of the individual factions. So I'd expect something from the Taurians, take the bull by the horns would be the name of the card. And, maybe it lets you like do extra damage in a melee attack or something like that. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting because it's the first time I've done a team formatted tournament, even though it's not really a tournament. It's more like a narrative, like day of gaming, but it's a casual tournament for all intents and purposes. The first time I've done that using the Alpha Strike rules. And then it uses the 350 kind of limitations on what you can take and things like that. We've been told that there's going to be a mission that we need the infantry for to take specific objectives. And then also that our mechs are going to want to have hands so they can pick things up. And so that tells me that some of the objectives you're going to want to like smash and grab and run off with your mechs. The list I'm bringing, I'm not going to go into like super, super detail on it, but I'm taking the Atlas 7D. It's your stock Atlas that I did a review on recently. It's a 5.52. I really like that Atlas if you're going to take one, just because it's got the chunk and it's really good at holding down objectives. I'm taking this because this is my custom Atlas for my pirates, and I just love him. I nickname him Broadside. I pinned and glued a bunch of like 10 and 15 millimeter like Napoleonic era black powder cannons on him. And he walks around with his bucket head with a skull on it, just blasting. I have a grasshopper. I nicknamed him Iago. He's a 341 grasshopper. These are pretty solid grasshopper. It's a pretty solid like heavy mech. I wish it had with speed 10, that would make him like super good, but having that extra point of damage at 13 is really nice. He also has jump. I called him Iago because he's got a little piece of clan battle armor on his shoulder like a parrot, and I painted him like Iago from Aladdin, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid. I've got a Maxim heavy hover transport. It's the same one we all know and love. I've got that in there just for a little bit of speed and for transporting some infantry. I also got a J. Edgar, the MG variant, also just for some speed. This is where my list kind of, I've got two more mechs. I got an Oscout and a Spider. They're basically carbon copies of each other. 16 move with a jump, 1/1 damage, 5 total health. They're there to grab objectives, jump around, be annoying. After that, I really got crazy. I like to use these narrative events to kind of sandbox and work on ideas and challenge myself as a player because it's supposed to be casual and just see how things might work out that I've been kicking around in my head. And I'd encourage you to do the same. Instead of just playing the same old, especially if you play a lot of competitive battletech, like lean into the theme and the narrative. I didn't really want to run like hover spam. It's just like, it's really good and I've done it before. And I think a lot of folks are going to run it. And I really want to try to make like wheeled vehicles work in some way. And I'm not sure that they can in the current format. But I wanted to try it out. I want to have these little like balls of destruction running around. And these like hunter packs of like meh speed wheeled vehicles that dish a decent amount of damage. So if you look on this screen, I've got these battle buses and the other thing is I like to be able to run stuff that I can't run in a normal WolfNet format because of restrictions on the models you can use. So I'm using some proxies here. So I'm using a battle bus from Drop Zone Commander as I think it's called a Sleipnir APC tank. I think these are low key, kind of good. They're TMM of 2, 10 wheeled. They do get 7 hit points and they're 3/2. I mostly took them because I want to be able to transport the infantry in them. And I think that 2 damage at medium range is pretty decent for 22 points. Not bad at all. And I've got 2 of those in there. The other wheeled vehicle I got is the light SRM carriers. And I'm using those 2 like technical trucks from Drop Zone Commander that you see on the screen as the light SRM carriers. They're speed 8. They get 4 damage total and they're 3/3. Got to be pretty careful with these because they can easily just get like they can just get wrecked in a turn of shooting. But that 3/3 is no joke. And it's also turreted, which is kind of nice. But I am going to have to be really careful with how I play those. It's going to be really challenging. But I think that light SRM carrier's got some wheels. I mean, a regular SRM carrier is like pretty terrifying on the board. And you can take 2 of these things for 32 points. If you had a mech that had 8 total hit points and moved 8 and threw 6 damage at medium range for 32 points, I think you'd probably take it, right? Like you would, for 32 points, you would buy people buy that trebuchet, that like low 30s trebuchet that's like 8 points of damage and does 4, and this would be like what I would compare it to, but I'm doing 6 and it's 2 separate units. So if one gets nuked, like the other one's still around, I guess. It is wheeled, so it's going to take motive hits. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of excited for it. Then last, I'm taking 2 Bulldogs, the LRM variants. They're 21 points. They're move 8 track. They get 6 points of damage each, and they're 2/3, which isn't terrible damage. Actually, they're 2/3/2, so I can shoot long range, and they have an IFO1, which is all right. Probably won't use that too much, though. I'm really looking at. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at using that APC, the Bulldog, and the light SRM carriers, like 2 groups of the combo of the 3 of them, and having them work together. I figured like the way I want to think of running them is like thinking of running like an Atlas or something that's like in the like mid 50s to low 60s points of like whatever you would spend on, right? And so like if you add that up, that's 8 points of damage at medium range for like 59 points, but it's also 10, 17 points of health. Like if you had a heavy mech that moved 8 had 17 points at health and did 8 at medium for like 59 points, you might consider taking that, right? Like I would. And so that's kind of how like I'm mentally preparing myself for like running these. So we'll just have to see kind of how that goes. Like I said, I like to workshop this stuff. I had a build in here where it was like a lot of those like pack rats, like recon trucks, things like that were basically like wheel to move 14, 1 like damage. I think they all take like 2 or 3 or 4 hit points. Kind of wanted to see how that would work, but like 300 points was a lot to fill out. And the list ended up being like 2 atlases and then like 10 of those. And I just wasn't comfortable running that. But I do feel like I want to try that at some point to see how those do. I think the speed's only 14 instead of 16, like a lot of the hover. But man, like having technical trucks on the board just looks cool. And I just want it to work so bad. But alas, I did not do it in here because I needed to fill out some points and I needed my firepower. I think this list in total has 30 shots at medium range, which is good. I just think that I think we're just going to struggle is that there's a lot of low TMM. I got 6 units that are TMM 1, and let's see, 4 of them, the SRM carriers and the Bulldogs, like do not have a lot of hit points. Like they are going to bleed, right? I think the Scout and this Spider are perfectly fine objective grabbers for this. They're going to be jumping the whole time basically and getting their TMM up to 4. Like it's a way to like cheat TMM 4 in there. The J Edgar is going to be fine. It has TMM 4, and then I think the Maxim's going to be fine too. Like I'm not worried about those. I think the APCs are going to last longer than what most people would give them credit for, and I'm kind of excited to try those out. Plus those battle buses look super cool in my opinion. And then I just love running that Atlas and that Grasshopper. So this will be the video for today instead of doing a mech of the week. And then I'll probably next week do a recap on how this event went. I know this will be 3 weeks with no mech of the week. But we had Adepticon in there, and I've just got a bunch of other stuff going on, and I got to I kind of have to moderate how much content I'm putting out. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of stuff a little too quickly. So I'm really excited for this. I'll let you guys know how it goes. Do a recap of the games, kind of like I did for Adepticon singles. I know the later next week, I'm going to be recapping my doubles event, and then I'll kind of get back into a regular schedule of things with the mech of the week. And then I think I've got another mission battle, like one of the Wolfnet missions, like review how to plays coming up too, so that you can look forward to. If you do narrative events, narrative campaigns, if you've done a team thing, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, may the blessings of Blake be upon you.